Good morning and welcome to, I guess this is show number 12 of South Sound Connection Live. So we've got two guests today to talk about, the purpose of the show is kind of making people aware, shouting out local entrepreneurs, businesses, and community leaders that are doing good things in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. So just a quick personal shout out, hot off the presses, my book with a list of quality contributors. So you can skip all the parts I wrote and just read the parts that they wrote. But this is Be Intentional Culture, how small things enhance or undermine your culture. So if you are working to build a strong and thriving workplace culture, this is a book for 2021. And so there's links and whatnot, and you can find those. So our guest is coming on from Platoon 720. He was also a guest of our larger podcast, the DYOJO Podcast, helping professionals in the skilled trades to shorten their dang learning curve. So I think that was episode 30, if I remember correctly. Let me look this up. Yep, episode 30 of the DYOJO Podcast. So without further ado, let's bring... There you are.
What's up? Good morning, John. How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Hey, doing great, man. Good to see you.
I like the branding. I saw you got the mugs, you got the shirts.
Yeah.
and the Falcons, huh? Didn't quite pull it off this year, huh?
No, man. Nah, we didn't have a good year.
Yeah. The Hawks also didn't fell short. So, but yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. You've got a unique perspective with Platoon 720. Let's see, it says, specialize in business development, credit score improvement, and community partnership by providing business education and credit literacy to veterans, first-time home buyers, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Anybody that's met you knows you're very, very passionate.
Yes, sir.
You have a deep desire to help people and to share what you've learned and help people apply that both to their personal lives and their businesses. So what are you seeing in 2021 that what are some simple things people can do to help put themselves and or their business in a better position to thrive?
Well, man, contrary to popular belief, man, I'm seeing nothing but opportunities. Like this is going to be a great year of opportunities, because I believe that those who are really hungry for success find a way to thrive in the midst of adversity, in the midst of such opposition and trying times that we're in. One of the main things is, of course, I specialize in credit. One of the main things I'm telling my clients and strangers and others that I partner with is pull your credit score. Like, always be watching your credit score, your credit report, because the report is so much more important than most think. Most will watch Credit Karma and Credit Sesame and other monitoring apps, and they're just watching the score. But we need for them to watch more of the score, but also watch the entire file, because it's the file now that's driving you to the bank, that's driving you to the approvals, that's driving you to being able to close on homes during the time that we're in. So knowing how to read that report, knowing what's in it, and being able to identify, why is the score here? Why am I here? Why am I at a 610? Why am I at a 540? Because what I'm realizing as I'm doing consultation daily and we're reviewing the report, there's a lot of surprises in there. And it's surprising the consumer, because many will just say, well, my credit ain't good, or my credit score is bad. But you ask them why, they'll say, I don't know. I haven't seen it in 2 years. Credit Karma told me I got it. And they don't realize that even with Credit Karma, they're only seeing 2 scores, and that's TransUnion and Equifax. There's another one that's missing. So education in the credit literacy area is so important during this time. So I urge everyone to make sure they're watching their credit score just like they're watching their bank account, because there's going to be so many doors open where you can leverage credit to secure the home of your dreams. Even now during the pandemic, you can leverage credit to one of the strategies I love using is go ahead and start communicating with those you have active accounts with. Right? It's almost like me and you in a relationship. if I don't call you sometimes or I don't reach back out to you, our relationship grows cold, and I'm no longer top of mind for you.
Yeah.
Right? Which I'm going to do better with that, right? Because credibility is important, just like credit. So now as you're calling them and you're telling them where you are and what type of help you need, there are so many programs. They're nice people. I think there's a myth, John, that so many people think the people that you're doing business with and have credit with, that they're mean. And as soon as you skip a payment or you miss a payment or you run into a financial failure, they're just going to come after you. But they want our phone calls.
Yeah.
They want to hear from us. So I urge consumers to find out why you're there, look at your active accounts, communicate with those and say, hey, can we look at lowering my interest rate? Because I don't want to miss a payment. I just need to, lower my interest rate so I can continue to afford the car and not go into repossession. Hey, American Express, Navy Fed, can we talk about lowering my interest? Can we talk about balance transfer to a lower payment? Communication is the key to success, like no other time in history in 2021.
Communication is the key to success. Yeah. Well, I referenced you came on the DYOJO Podcast episode 30, and I'm still practicing some of the things you shared, as far as like, even get your balance lifted. Not necessarily that we want to max out our credit cards, but you want that proportion of what you're using on that credit card.
Let's revisit that. See, all of this plays together because if we're watching our scores daily and we understand that we're in the 620 or the 660 and the score dropped because you had to max out a card, and rightfully so. There are many that are using their credit limits because they need to make ends meet.
Yeah.
But what if you can call your company and say, because you've never missed a payment in 2 years, can you raise my credit limit?
Yeah.
Okay. It was at $2,500. Of course, I had to spend up to $2,000 because I lost my job or unemployment stopped. They'll say, okay, well, we're going to raise your credit limit to $5,000. Now, with communication and relationship, that can happen.
Right.
We're not saying it's guaranteed, but with communication and relationship, it increased the probability of it. And so what happens now, that 640, 660 goes back up to 730 without you making a payment, without you having to go find the $2,000 and pay it back down. It allows you to buy some time while you're waiting to get hired, while you're waiting on your income tax refund. So now you're finding ways to leverage credit scores and leverage credit, because that also allows family, John, to not mess with their emergency fund.
Right.
Because some of us are messing or are tampering with emergency funds, and it's not an emergency. It's just a scare. I'm afraid. I don't know the things that you and I are talking about right now.
Yeah. Well, what is obviously, say you get in that position where, and I've been there. I know you've been there, where your savings isn't what it should be, but that's not necessarily, sure, we all make bad decisions, but it's more just life, right? What are some of the ways people can discern they're getting good advice? I think that's one thing about it is, you hear the horror stories, right? Like I reached out to somebody and I got myself in a worse position. So maybe I'm just better off, dealing with my own mess. What are some of the things people can use to discern, okay, this is good advice that's going to help move me forward rather than get me even deeper in trouble?
One of the things, be careful taking advice from people who don't know your situation. The reason I say that is one size doesn't fit all. Yeah. We can no longer just put out general guidance and think it's going to work for everybody, because all of our financial situations are very unique. So be leery of those who don't ask the right questions, right? When they're giving you guidance. Because if I don't ask you questions, then I'm misdiagnosing your problem. And I'm assuming that you don't have this and that. And I'm giving you something that seems cookie cutter. But what worked for John is not going to work for Terrilski, because they have different situations. And so an expert or a subject matter expert in whatever field will always ask the right question so they can guide you in the right direction. Because I cannot just tell you, hey, John, go and apply for these 2 credit cards because you need to include. No, don't tell John that, because John just blowed his last 2 credit cards.
Yeah.
Let's give him a strategy to deal with what he have, so he can position himself to be trusted, because risk level matters. I have clients with over 700 scores that cannot get into a home because the risk level is still high, because the activity inside of the report has to be paid attention to, has to be understood, and has to be handled properly.
Yeah, that's thankfully over time, hopefully that's the biggest thing, right, is learn from your mistakes. Try not to make the same mistakes over and over again.
That's right.
We've all made them, right? And so when you survive, then try not to make the same ones.
Absolutely. Let me give a couple more tips, man.
Maybe
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I think we had a little glitch there. Go for it, please.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna give a couple more tips, just some things that family members can do now. Again, definitely use those free resources. They can use Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, even though it's showing them a Vantage score. It's not the real FICO score. That's why scores be different. But go to annualcreditreport.com. Now through April, you can check your credit report once a week. Now through April, it's been going on now for almost a year since the pandemic. They can check everything in their credit file for free. They won't get a score for free, but their credit report itself, annualcreditreport.com. Look through there. Okay. Look for things that don't line up right. I don't care if your name is not spelled right, the addresses are not right. Look at the balances on all the accounts and dispute those things. You don't need something fancy. Just say this ain't right. Delete this, because everything has to be 100% accurate, true, and verifiable. So please take advantage of that. The other thing, if they don't have any credit at all, or they've been afraid of credit cards, okay, if they have a good relationship with their bank, please go and get a secured credit card, so that can start reporting as good credit managing. Because if you don't have a credit card, then your credit utilization, which is a major part of your credit score, is being hurt, because there's nothing there. That's about 165 points that we have available to us. And so if you're preparing for a home, you're preparing for refinancing, but you have no credit, please start with a secured card. Manage that well at 30% or less. I always say 10%, but at 30% usage every month. So that way you can show that you are a good manager and a steward of credit, and that you do not mismanage, so that now they can trust you on a higher level with the car, with the home later on. But that's a good start.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think you and I have talked. My daughter's 18, so she's just getting started out. So is that what you would recommend to somebody that's just starting out? The secured debit card, that's the one where you actually put money against it, right?
That's right. Secured credit card. A secured credit card, you put money on it. And what happens is after about 90 days, 6 months, that bank will open up unsecured access. Yeah, because you're showing them that I can be faithful. I like the Bible principles, where if you be faithful of a few things, you become ruler over many. We have to be faithful at small levels as we're going forward, and just taking the risk, but then also having accountability. A lot of time I tell our students and your children to go and get the card, but give it to your parents, right? And only once you use 30% of it, your max. 30% should be the max, not 30%. So if they get a $300 card, let them know $100 is your max. If you go over that, you're going to hurt your score. Because I love seeing kids graduate from school and go get a car for $0 down, because most of our families cannot afford $30,000, $15,000 cash car. Yeah. So we're teaching them responsibility.
Yeah. Well, and that's too, we learned, thankfully, early on. I was terrible. I still don't trust myself with credit cards, but I understand you got to build credit, right? So that's the thing. Like, I'll give it to my wife, and but those big purchases, right? Like we talked about that last time too. If ultimately you want a nicer house, you want to get into the neighborhood you want to be in, those kinds of things. One of the biggest things that's going to impact your buying power is the car, right? So sometimes it's go a little less on the car, get something you can afford that does the job. So absolutely. Bigger item, right? So it's not saying budgeting is not saying you can't have, it's just more what do you ultimately want, right?
Because you have to have a vision. And I always tell families, let the vision dictate your next move. So if the vision is to buy a house or get a luxury car, let's start with a smaller car for now, just to show the system that we are responsible, right? And that we can create a good positive relationship in our credit file, so that now we can be trusted later on without a cosigner. We can do things without having a cosigner. And that's very important, John.
Yep. Well, that's awesome, man. I always love seeing you around town. Hopefully soon
Absolutely.
we'll be able to get back out and do in-person meetings. And so the website is Platoon 720. Your background's in the military, and that's where you kind of got started out helping military families,
Absolutely.
right? You help them all, small business owners, veterans, first-time home buyers. So,
and we give free advice. I give free advice, free consultations around the clock. And that's one of the things I want you to make sure you let your audience know when they're getting advice financially. If they're charging you up front before even helping you, be careful. Okay, even if for credit repair companies, we are governed by CROA, Credit Repair Organizations Act. That means we cannot charge anything, and we must tell the clients that the advice we're giving them, that they can do this on their own for free. Those disclaimers have to be made. And if they're dealing with anybody in the financial industry, especially credit, that is not giving those disclaimers, run. Call Terrilski, call us here at the office. I'm always available to give free advice on what families, what individual veterans, nonprofit organizations should do when it comes to helping their audience.
Oh, nice. So the website, Platoon 720, how else is that the best way for people to get a hold of you then?
Absolutely. They can go to platoon720.com and they can schedule there, or they can go to platoon720.as.me. Platoon720.as.me. They will see a 15-minute free consultation there. They can book anytime. I jump on the phone with them, help them get a strategy on how they can win at the credit game.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, sweet, man. Well, we've got, I told you one about 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
You've been really
appreciate you, man. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Terrell.
All right. We'll talk soon now. Yes, sir. Let me know if you need anything.
Absolutely.
All righty. Thanks.
All right. So that's, Terrilski. If you meet him in person, super passionate about what he does, and very skilled, very active in the Tacoma community. And obviously, we've got the Joint Air Force Base, so heavy military community around Tacoma. And so very cool. So just very practical advice. I would, not to toot our own horn, but if you watch the DYOJO Podcast, episode 30, we go into some greater detail how that affects small business owners and those kinds of things as well. So boom, another South Sound Connection live. SSC live, in the bag, as the kids say. We got the shirts for 2021. Brian Close of All American Restoration Services out of Tacoma designed this sweet design that has some of the skyline views from Tacoma, Washington, obviously with the retro Seattle Supersonics vibes. So got these made by Single Speed Screen Printing, who was a guest on the show. Even people that root for the Blazers can do good work.
LeBron James.
So we hear this all the time. We're on the street. What is a South Sound connection? We're just trying to highlight good things in the Pacific Northwest and adjacent, entrepreneurs, business owners, artists, community leaders. You've probably seen about us, you've heard about us. We've had Corbett Mosley talking about his game success factors, Lindsay Ward, who won the September 2020 challenge, Kevin Bates from Helping Hands House, Adam Norwest, we gave away some free burritos from Grit City Breakfast in Tacoma. Crystal Hart Meeker, Save Albany Now. Tony Taylor talking about supporting and hiring veterans and his inspirational talks. Chad Curligan, The Men, Emotions and Music. Meg Hawks with Single Speed Screen Printing. Mindy Baker with the Beautiful Tacoma Murals. Ken Brown talking about community involvement as an organization. Corbett Mosley again gave us an update. And most recently, Jack Cameron from Tacoma Stories and Sierra Hartman from Grit City Magazine talking about keep telling good stories. So that's what our goal is. Like I said, All American, if you see this logo around town, they're a local general contractor that specializes in insurance claims, water, fire damage repairs. They can help you work with your insurance company and get your house back to pre-loss conditions, as we say. And also the DYOJO Podcast. The DYOJO Podcast. That's thedyojo.com/SSC if you want to know more about this show. And just a quick pitch. I wrote my second book. This is a collaborative effort on culture. Developing a thriving culture, talking about taking care of your culture because it takes care of your people, which leads to taking care of your customers, which leads to taking care of your profits. So you can check that out on the website as well. But please check out our great guests. Check out our sponsors, All American Restoration Services and the DYOJO Podcast. And if you hear something that you think should be shouted out, please let us know. Thank you. Have a great Pacific Northwest day, and we'll see you next week, every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, South Sound Connection, SSC Live. Hit me with that outro music from Pat F. and Brown, Cosmonaut Coffee.